I decided to take on a new scene today just to make the video a little more interesting. Hey friends, welcome back again to Nick the Mage. I'm glad to see you here. Today we're going to be speaking about something more interesting. In our previous video, we talked about how to charm people, and let's see if you can put these skills to good use. Now, before we get on to this video, I would formally like to thank you watching this channel, and if you're comfortable with it, maybe hit that subscribe button, and if not, well, a like will suffice. As you probably already know or might have gathered, I am in fact South African. I currently reside in Johannesburg, South Africa, which is the city of the country, of course, but there's another city. Johannesburg is the biggest metropolitan area by far. So today we'll be going through different factors in South Africa that you might be looking for. If you're thinking about, in fact, moving here, it is a great country. I grew up here, born and raised, so I know the city. Although I must mention that I've never really left the city. In this video, we'll be talking about 5 things that you might need to know before definitely moving into South Africa. What it's like living in South Africa from a South African. Now, you've probably thought about moving into the country or at least passing by or visiting, but here are the things that you need to know first. First thing we'll get into is the weather. This is one of the biggest topics you can ever speak about when you're coming into a new country, the weather. You always want to know how it is in a certain country or new territory when you're coming into it, of course. Living in South Africa for like 22 years, I know what the weather is like, especially in the city, because I've never really been in other places, but this does apply to other parts of South Africa. South Africa's got provinces, and some of these provinces are closer to the coast, and of course the weather will be a little different, but if we're speaking for the inland provinces, they're more warmer. So typically in South Africa, the weather is very tropical. It's during spring and summer, and our spring and summer ranges from this to that. The weather here is pretty chill. It's not too hot, it's not too cold. But I will say there is one thing that is different when you're moving into other countries. It's not very hot in South Africa, but it is pretty humid and the weather is well balanced. From a personal view, I know that, of course, the weather changes daily. So the weather here is very funny because in a day you get like 3 different seasons to 4. In wintertime it can get really chilly, especially for people who are used to living in the coastal areas. Weather changes season pretty often on a day-to-day basis, to the fact that you might notice that in the mornings it can get very sunny or cloudy depending on the season, and then midday you have another different temperature where it gets really cold or chilly perhaps, or rainy. It's so random, and it can last for like a couple of hours, and then all of a sudden, boom, it's hot again. You don't know where that weather comes from. I'm not an expert and I will not get into how that works exactly, but it does range on different time periods. So within summer, make sure to wear appropriately. Bring a light jersey, put it in the car, put it in the back, just to be safe. When you're going on a night out, you know that you have some sweater on, something light in summer, of course. If you're used to the colder weather, you're not going to feel it that much, but it can get extremely hot. So I'd say wear less clothing. So yeah, you should have 2 different apparels that you can change into. If you don't know, South Africa is a country and not a direction, but yes, we are a real country located right down below. Don't get confused. South Africa is a country that is in Southern Africa. It's the lowest country in all of Africa, in all of the 54 countries of Africa. Number 2, which is the biggest concern for most foreign nationals that want to come here in South Africa, is safety. Now I know what you're thinking. Oh, it's probably very high crime rates from what I've seen on my research.
You'd be telling the truth.
But here is where it gets interesting. South Africa has some of the highest crime rates, yes. However, there are places that are safe enough, but there are places that get safe enough. So if you're thinking about getting an apartment here, let's say you're moving, I would recommend that you move into gated communities. Call those estate houses here in South Africa. You can find a place with a gated community that you can live inside, which is a lot more safer. However, going into the streets, when you're by the traffic lights, or what we call robots, you cannot stop at a robot or a red light and chill. The crime rate is higher through hijacking, I must say. South Africa is a very mixed country, and it has a lot of different people from different places. You could be from a gated community, and when you're leaving to go do some shopping, you take your car, you end up at a shopping center and park your car there. And you're gonna forget maybe to lock your car. That is a no-no. You shouldn't forget to lock your car. Always lock your car. And if you have a house in South Africa, even if it's in a gated community, please lock that house. Keep it locked. This is due to the fact that we are a developing nation, and of course, it's not an equal area to live in. So when you're moving into the country, you must expect that there will be very wealthy people, and on the other end of the spectrum, there'll be people who are very needy, and you'll be right in the middle and caught in between this political war that is happening. So that brings me to the third point, understanding the politics of the area. Of course, when you're getting into the country, you might be thinking in terms of liberal and all communion vibes, but of course, it's different in South Africa. You have to understand the political play. People are free to speak about any political parties in South Africa, and there'll be some sort of debates that happen from time to time. It is normal to speak about politics here than it is in other countries, I presume. So yeah, you should definitely understand the politics dynamic instead of just staying out of it. For the most part, if you know about the politics, you understand the entirety of the country. So like I mentioned at the start of the video, you would be better off understanding what is happening in the country and very much getting into the politics. You don't have to participate, but you just have to understand the major parties that are coming into play. The tourism sector of South Africa is pretty great, I must say. They are great at what they do. They have staff. It's easy to get a hotel, rent a room, find a place to stay for a couple of days. Transport is pretty decent in South Africa. It can get cheap, but it can also get expensive. It's not really a stable economy, so don't get hassled. There's going to be places where the transport is easily accessible, but for a higher price. Also, I should mention the tourism sector is pretty big. It is, along with small businesses and enterprises, one of the biggest GDP growers in South Africa. Just be prepared to take a taxi, or take a metered cab, or take an Uber, or take a train. It's mixed bunch. Even buses are cheaper, but you would be sacrificing getting there on time. As I said, the political play is a big thing, and sometimes there are things we call strikes, or what you guys know as a riot, in where people are kind of appealing to the government officials for higher wages, salary, and blah blah blah. But generally, those don't happen. They happen at the start of the year and maybe like mid-year sometimes, but they rarely happen now. But you should understand that it is something that will happen, and sometimes it could affect your commute, prices, and accessibility to buses or trains or cabs or whichever mode of transport you're choosing. When we do riots in South Africa, you must understand it's a little different. We block roads so that people don't go to work. Traffic congestions do happen. You might be late to your workplace. But it's nothing unusual really. If you plan to find employment here, you will oftentimes have a very understanding manager or employer because they know what happens in the country. So the tourism sector, the biggest one is short-lived. If you're looking for a fun activity to do with your whole family, your biggest bet is with short-lived. They have a bunch of awesome prices, especially for foreign. The fourth point, because I integrated tourism and transport, so we're gonna call that one point. The fourth point will be the banking. Now, banking is a lot easier in South Africa, I'm not gonna lie. There's a bunch of different branches that serve to work with you. There's a bunch of standards and regulations that you must follow, of course, especially if you're foreign national. It's very good for you to kind of understand that there are major banks that carry out large amounts of volume every single day, which is how every single bank works. The banking here in South Africa is pretty standard. You'll find everything that you need. You know that when you're going to places, you can either withdraw cash from the ATM, which is not the safest in South Africa. You can also do tap to pay, which is the more modern, friendlier, and safest. You can do cell phone banking, and Visa is a pretty big merchant in Africa as a whole, I think. So it's very easy to get to where you need to be. But I will say, if you're going for cheaper, you're going to need cash. If you're going to places where you've been recommended that you should go to, maybe to do some shopping, grocery shopping, or maybe just, clothing, all that sort of stuff. Clothing you can find at high end again, and you can find at the lower tiers. It's very divided in the country, so you must know which tax bracket you fall under, and it will help you greatly survive the country, just as much as you must understand the political stance of the country. Shopping is pretty accessible, and if you're going again to the lower tier shops, you're going to need cash. They don't do swiping. If you're going to the higher ends, then you'll be fine. Cost of living in South Africa is pretty decent. I'm not gonna get into like the average cost, but if I am, I'll just put it after. I'll do some research separately. If you're a student moving into the country, it is a lot easier to integrate you because everything you're buying is going to be marketed around what students can actually afford. It's very affordable for foreign students in most times to kind of move into our ecosystem. So basically, if you're a student, it's a lot more affordable. If you're thinking about transferring, we have some of the best universities in South Africa. However, the acceptance rate is pretty high, and it is in most cases overcrowded in public universities, which your best bet would be to transfer to private universities. South Africa is not a scary place. Don't let people deter you from coming here. It is fun. We have beaches in Capetown and literally everywhere else in South Africa. And you can see a lot of wild animals, and it is that adventure that they market to you. It's actually very much what you see on the socials, on TV. It is exactly that. But it's fantastic. You get a lot of diversity as well. You get a lot of mixed people. Again, understanding the political aspect of South Africa, like the biggest three political parties, which I'm not going to get into for obvious reasons, but it's your safest bet to understand the politics scheme before coming here. But other than that, you'll be safe. Understand safety and lock your house, lock your cars, lock your doors, lock your dogs. But yeah, no, it's pretty great if you are moving in at a young age. And for people who are looking for business opportunities, it has got the widest market that you can possibly think of, because the people here in South Africa are just in the middle point of having a lot of information and very little access to it. But if you can bridge that gap, I would say you've got yourself a jackpot. I really do hope that you found great value in this video and you can share it with your friends and anyone who's planning to move into South Africa or is thinking about it. But please, if you want to help the channel out, comment down below, hit those thumbs up, and also make sure to watch my other video linked here to learn how to be the ultimate charm master. But that is it for me. It's been a fun time, fun pleasure. I still don't know how to do outros. If you wish to see more content like this, please hit that subscribe button. But that is it for me. I hope to see you again on the next video. Bye.